Hey folks, hope y'all are doing well today. Are you overweight, but interested in living this homestead lifestyle and just don't know how to get started? I got some ideas for you, so come on in. Let's go sit in the office, get out of this stormy weather, go talk about it. So I want to start off by saying congratulations. The fact that you're sitting here watching this video means that you have an interest in doing these things. You have an interest in improving. You have an interest in homesteading. That's a huge win. And I think it's important to start with acknowledging that and recognizing that anybody can do this. Literally anybody. Yaya has knee problems. I have thyroid issues. We both have various mobility challenges and things that to someone living in the city, they might just look at this and look at us and go, you're crazy, that's not achievable, that's not doable. But the reality is people in the rural areas of the world have just as many problems as city folk do. So if you think that you cannot live this lifestyle or this is not possible, I'm here to encourage you and just tell you that you can. You really can. It's very doable. I wanted to put this video together to give you some tips and tricks. Some motivation, some things to just get you thinking about the fact that this stuff really is possible, that it really is achievable. All right, so let's just dive into it. So the first things I think that's important to establish is your why. Why do you want to do this? What is your motivation? Is it to be more intentional and deliberate about your existence on the earth like Yaya and I are? Is it to get away from the city and grow your own food? Is it to raise your own animals? Is it you see something in society that you don't like, or you just don't want to be on top of each other anymore in a city environment? Whatever the motivation is, establish your why. Your why is going to be the thing that carries you through the hard times when something challenging comes up and you feel like you're at the end of your rope. The why is really going to be one of those things that helps motivate you. So I would encourage you to start with the why. Why do you want to do this? It's very doable, which I'll kind of get into and explain a little bit as we go. So once you have your reasons, your why, there are a couple things to consider. As a person or as a family that is overweight, you have to consider what resources you have available and what is achievable with those resources. So what I mean is 100 acres may be too much to manage. You may not even know what that looks like to manage 100 acres. 10 acres might be manageable. 20 acres might be manageable. 5 might be manageable. 2 even. My point is, you have to determine what resources you have available, what your energy supply is, what finances you have, what help you have available to you. To consider those things and try to work within those means, but also allow opportunity to push yourself. The next thing is going to be what I call proximity to convenience. This is where we are here in Kansas, in Northeast Kansas. This is our second property, our second rural property. Prior to this, we had 10 acres in the Texas market just outside of Dallas. And that was really where we cut our teeth on what it meant to live a rural lifestyle. Now, Yaya grew up on acreage. She had experience of this lifestyle from her childhood, but things are very different when it's kind of your responsibility. And it's just the two of us. We don't have kids, so our resources are fairly limited. We had to make certain considerations and decisions when we chose this lifestyle. One was, what's in a reasonable amount of size or a reasonable amount of land? Is 10 acres enough? Is 20 acres enough? I mean, my dream is 100 acres, but I don't know that I could manage 100 acres. So consider a land size and consider proximity to convenience. Proximity to convenience is the idea that you're going to have to work for what you want versus you can go buy it. Fast food is a convenience. If your objective is to lose weight, you might consider a place that has less access or no access to fast food restaurants. If that's your crux and you're trying to get away from it, move to an environment, look for land in an area that has none of that stuff, at least not within 30 minutes. And you'd be surprised, there are places in the world that have no fast food, no junk food available within a 30-45 minute drive. That's not as unheard of as you might think it is. In the cities, they have this, they perpetuate that, I guess, there's convenience around the corner, and every corner has 4 gas stations and at least two fast food restaurants. That's not the case in most areas of the state, in most areas of the country. It's only like that in kind of the overly saturated, overly populated cities. So consider your proximity to convenience. What's your tolerance there? Is it acceptable to have to drive 45 minutes to go to the grocery store? Is it acceptable to, not have even any sit-down restaurants within a 20-minute drive? Those kinds of things. Is it acceptable that you're going to have to cook more often than not? You have to be mindful of those things. So again, proximity to convenience. Consider those things. Another thing to consider is community opportunities to get involved. So a lot of small towns, small rural areas honestly have more culture than I've seen in a lot of larger cities. It's you have things like one-ring circuses that blow through town. Yes, that still happens even in 2023. There are circuses that will come through town and set up in these small towns. Reunion events, threshing bees, that kind of things. There are even, there was a Patriots Day parade that I just went to today in our little town. It was quite fun. My point is, find the community. Look for the opportunities to get involved. The community is important because you don't want to be isolated. You don't want to be trying to do this on your own. You can't be afraid to ask for help, especially as someone who is, has more challenges than others in life when it comes to weight, stamina, endurance, mobility, all those things. There's always going to come a point when you need assistance, you need help. You want to be in a place where you can over time establish that community, work yourself into that community so that when you need assistance, when you need help, you have someone you can call on. That's another thing to consider. Next thing I would say is don't be afraid to do the hard things. You have to recognize that this lifestyle is intentional, it is deliberate, but it is also incredibly rewarding. It hurts at times. There is nothing convenient about it, but there are health benefits to it. There's benefits to your physical health. There's benefits to your mental health. Sunshine is really good for you. It's hard to describe what it's like to be out working with your hands all day outside on some project, complete it, or get it to a stopping point, and at the end of the day, sit down with a glass of lemonade around a campfire, or just in front of the TV even. There's something about that is very fulfilling, that if you've never experienced it, it's hard to describe, is what I would tell you. So don't be afraid to do the hard things. The hard things are important. So, I would just encourage that. The next thing is, there is such thing as a homestead workout. It's when you're actively involved in the projects of land management and doing the hard things, you're naturally going to shed weight because you are working physically. And for those of us that are overweight, you end up going slower. And the first thing I'll tell you is that's okay. Nature does not move fast. Small town life, rural life typically does not move fast. When it does, it's because nobody is paying attention. If you're paying attention to the things that matter and you're observing the changes that are needed on your land, and as long as you're staying on top of them and you're paying attention and dealing with the projects kind of as they come up, life maintains a steady pace out here in kind of the more rural parts of the world. The hustle and bustle is all man-made, is what I would tell you. You do not have to live that way. If you're tired of the pace of the city and want to consider a more rural homesteading life, recognize that it's very possible, but the difference is that you have to be intentional about what you pay attention to. And just know that if you're feeling stressed and a lot of anxiety, a lot of times it's artificial. A lot of times it's man-made and it's coming from your own head. It does not represent reality. So that's kind of the next thing. The homestead workout is a real thing. It's, you know, you'll drop weight, you'll gain strength, you'll build stamina and endurance. You'll find that you're able to work outside for longer periods of time in the sun, in the cold, over time. But you got to start small, start where you are, start small, make small changes, and just kind of build from there. One of the things that Yaya and I do as an example of starting small, you know, when we first got here, there was a section of a property that was over by the old barn that was about 1,700 square feet. And we went all in and we were like, okay, we're going to make this big garden. We're going to be able to put food stores up. We're going to be able to can. We're going to be able to do all these things, these awesome things. And what we found was it was too much for us. Those things were just not possible with where we were. Within days, the grasses, the foxtail, and the giant ragweed would come back into the garden. And the next thing you know, it's a foot tall, then it's 2 foot tall, then it's a jungle, and you can't even walk in the space, and you've lost the entire investment. So the next thing I tell you is do small things. Make small incremental improvements. And over time, it'll add up to big change. An example of a small garden that, you know, we did was we downsized from that, and we put in, we bought a couple of those horse troughs, those aluminum oval shaped horse troughs that stand, you know, 3 foot high, I guess. We filled those with dirt, and we have about 4 or 5 of them that we use as planters now. What we recognized, or what we realized from trying to plant that whole 1,700 square feet, was we already knew this, but we didn't know it to this level until we did it, that we don't do well on our hands and knees. And gardening is being down in the dirt quite a bit. There's compensations, there's ways around it. So our approach was, you know, number one, scale back so we can learn what we're doing with gardening. Don't spend $2,000 on a garden until putting in a garden, buying the equipment to do it, and all that stuff until you have a much better understanding of what it actually takes to garden. Do something small. Use a couple of used waterers, horse troughs. You know, even if they have holes in them, it may not hold water, but it'll hold dirt. And you don't want it to hold immense amount of water because then you'll flood your plants. So it's okay that they have holes in them. But do that. Select 1 or 2 plants that one or two vegetables or whatever that you want to put in that you think you'll eat a lot of, that'll be good for you, and just plant those. Focus on trying to keep those plants alive and gaining a harvest from that. Once you do that, that builds experience. That gives you momentum to kind of go to the next level down the road when the time is right. Another example is when we finally decided that, okay, it's time to add something else to the property. We ended up getting chickens. They call chickens a gateway to other farm animals. I would very much say that is true, considering we have chickens and sheep now. But if you get a good flock, chickens they're honestly, they're a very easy animal to manage. They don't take a lot of space. They have very few basic needs. You don't have to mother them like you see in some of these Facebook groups or whatever, where they just completely overdo it and completely over-engineer it and treat these animals like they're kids in a family. They're a food source. That's the first thing you have to recognize, is that while there is a marketability to them, you're doing these things in this homestead lifestyle for food security, for food independence. So that's why we got into chickens. We wanted the eggs, and we wanted the opportunity to have meat birds when we had to cull one. So again, that is, you know, those are just some basic things to consider. I've got a lot of other ideas, things like useful tools on the homestead, or if you're considering this life that things where you might want to look into investing first. If this is of interest to anybody and want to go deep into this subject, let me know in the comments, and let's have a conversation about it. But in the meantime, I encourage you to check out some of these other videos that are up here on screen for how we built our chicken coop. That we've got a whole series on how we put that together, the new one that we built, what we went through in that adventure. And if you're interested in looking at some of our stuff about some of our sheep, we got some of those videos over here as well. So I guess that's it for now. Thank you for your time. Take care.